Hey y'all, it is I, Anthony the Canadian Guy, and welcome to Wrestlesode, the solution to your wrestling information problems. Wrestlesode is a member of the Win Column Sports Network, so remember to check us out at wincolumnsports.ca to be kept updated on everything happening here in Alberta in the world of wrestling. Today, we're going to be talking Prairie Wrestling Alliance first show of the year, Genesis, PWA Genesis, which took place at the Cedar Brae Community Center in Calgary on Friday, January 11th. It was a fantastic show. I got to bring my real-life brother and two of my friends to their first ever wrestling event, and that made me really happy. They enjoyed themselves, so I really can't ask for anything better than that. And of course, I also got to see Paul at the show, Paul from the YYC Wrestling Hub. We're always running into each other over at the Calgary show since we're the Calgary guys, and we're trying to do what we can to promote the scene. But because of that, obviously, Paul's joined me today to talk PWA Genesis. Man, we had a great time at this show. We had a lot to talk about. The matches were fantastic. They continued with some really cool storylines. There was great humor. There was some cool spots. I had to go outside at one point in the middle of negative 35 degrees Celsius, which is not fun, just for the record. The show was. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, before we do get into that here today and chat with Paul, we're going to be hearing from our sponsors over at the AJHL. So remember to listen in for our review as soon as we're back.
From Lanny McDonald to Daryl Sutter, Mark Messier to Cale McCarr. Before you're a star, you've got to make it in the AJHL. On Saturday mornings, TSN 1260 takes an in-depth look inside the Alberta Junior Hockey League. Join Tyler Yaremchuk from 9 to 10 a.m. for previews, reviews, and interviews from around the AJ. Inside the AJHL, Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. Only on Edmonton's sports leader, TSN 1260.
Hey everybody, Anthony here. I am joined once again with Paul from the YYC Wrestling Hub. Paul, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing fantastic. Appreciate you having me back.
Man, it's just great to have you here. I mean, we're at every show in Calgary, so why not, right? Like, we're always there, we're always sitting together, we're always grabbing a beer, which we get to chat about tonight for a PWA show, which is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the first time in a long time I've been able to have a cold one while watching PWA.
At least here in Calgary, anyways. So
that's true.
Yeah.
The Nate shows in Edmonton, they do. Yeah,
they do up in Edmonton. It was kind of nice, I think. Let's just start off with that before we even get into the card. I thought adding the alcohol to this event, it didn't make anybody feel like they were too rambunctious. It still felt like a family show. Nobody was going overboard. And I think probably just based on how many people were at the bar, I'm hoping that made a lot of money off of it. So,
I'm sure they made a ton of money off of it.
Oh, yeah.
But
it was a good night.
I'm with you. I was glad to see that people didn't go overboard with it.
Yeah, it felt like a very respectful show. It felt like nobody was more than like 2 drinks in at any given time. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, it felt very, it felt like everybody was loose, but nobody was like loud and obnoxious.
Yeah, that's a good way to put
maybe myself. But so let's talk a little bit. Last night we were at PWA Genesis. We are doing this on Saturday or Sunday night. It was on Saturday. This is Sunday night. And it was a really great show. We'll just kind of go over the card here quickly, and then we'll just kind of get into the matches and tell you what we thought about the matches. Overall, I would say it was a really decent show. Some matches, really fun. It's really cold outside, and we have to talk about that tonight as well. But the very first match that we had was Aiden Adams, one half of Above Average Joe's, taking on Davey O'Doyle, one half of the League. A little fly just flew past my face. Get away from me. I'm keeping that in there. Millennial Rebels, made up of Colton Kelly and Mo Jabari, taking on Space Mountain, Barry Grayson, and Titan, the Titan. We also had Kylie Morgan versus Zoe Sager in the PWA Women's Championship match. We had a match between Brandon Van Danielson and Jack Pride. We had MRB challenging Thickness for the PWA Mayhem Championship in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And finally, we had Sheik Akbar Shabazz challenging Michael, Allen, Richard, Clark for the PWA Championship. I had to do that because I didn't want him stopping my podcast like he stopped the What About Ivan to make him do it again.
Well, and you didn't announce him as the PWA heavyweight champion either.
That's true, but apparently that's because that's not the title. Apparently, I believe that's what What About Ivan said. He's like, I can't call it that because that's not what it is.
That's true.
But so I'll call him the PWA Heavyweight Champion. I mean, look at him; he'll kick my butt if I don't, and I don't stand a chance against Michael Allen, Richard Clark. So PWA Heavyweight Champion. But we'll get towards the end. I just got to say quickly, just to build some anticipation for the beginning of that match, Michael Allen, Richard Clark, and Sheik Akbar Shabazz had the funniest, 2 minutes to start a match. Man, them and Davey O'Doyle and Adam Adams, they knew how to start their matches. Let me just say that way. It started with really good comedy. And I always love that about matches. So we'll start off at the beginning.
It gets the crowd up and into it.
Yeah. I think the way they started the show was perfect. As an opening match, Aiden Adams and Davey O'Doyle, they really read that as being the perfect opening match. It really got me into the show. They had a really good mix of obviously good humor. Davey O'Doyle is one of the funniest guys. It's the way he delivers everything. It's the way he will talk to the crowd. It's the way he reacts to specific things. And Aiden Adams is like the perfect foil to that. Yeah, exactly.
He's so committed to it that you believe it.
Yeah, exactly. Davey O'Doyle, he's an incredible wrestler. But if the way he can manipulate a crowd and get himself in just fun positions, making you want to cheer for him or boo him all in the same moment, he's perfect at that. And Aiden Adams, he was perfect at that. He also knows how to play a crowd. He's a great baby face, man. The things that he would say, he was really good, that little one-off banter where he would talk to the crowd. Like Davey O'Doyle would do something and he would turn to the crowd and start laughing at him. It's just perfect. They're a perfect match against each other because they just play off each other so well.
I agree. Aiden Adams is one of the most natural baby faces, I think, in PWA.
Oh, yeah. I could easily say that.
It's him and Zoe and a long distance until the next guy.
It does feel that way, right? Where it just comes so naturally. It comes out of them and in the same way as well, obviously with Kenny Straker, the other half of Above Average Joes, they're just perfect baby faces. They're just built so natural as a baby face.
Yeah. Kenny, I could see being a pretty good heel too, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess you're right. It would be kind of hard more to see Aiden as the heel, especially if he's wearing those almost green Power Ranger pants, which I absolutely adore.
He's just such a natural face.
Yeah. Oh, he really is. I don't want to see Kenny Straker turn heel though. Anytime soon, anyways. I really like them together.
Oh, I agree.
Excuse me. But let's kind of talk about this match. It was funny that there was a part where I never get this name right because I always want to call him Baby Teeve. But what is his real referee name?
I'm not sure. He's Baby Teeve to me forever
Baby
after
Teeve.
Clandestine.
That's exactly what it feels like. He's Baby Teeve. So Baby Teeve is the referee in this match, and Davey O'Doyle is in the ring. And I had to yell at him Baby Teeve! And then Davey O'Doyle turns and he yells back into the crowd. He's like, when I'm in the ring, you cheer for me. And then everybody just started cheering for Baby Teeve. It was amazing. I love that. Davey O'Doyle, he's just a treasure. Aiden Adams is such a treasure. At the very end of this, we had Davey O'Doyle submitting Aiden Adams. We don't have to go move for move, but we'll talk about what happened at the beginning because it was hilarious. Davey O'Doyle just never wanted to get into the ring. He would just run around the ring. He just kind of like a leisurely jaunt around the ring in a nice circle, get back into the ring just to roll back out. So I took my real life brother and my friend Matt and my friend Stian there for the very first ever wrestling event that they've ever been to. And they were laughing at this. They actually said at the very end, they had a really good time, which was great because I love bringing people to these events who've never been to these types of events, people who aren't wrestling people, and for them to go out and be like, that was really fun. And that's what they did. So, and
that's
my
what
brother
I really
even
appreciate
said
about PWA, especially they're a great product for first time people.
Yeah, I would say they're probably
they don't go too in depth with storylines every single show, so there's never really a moment of Well, what's going on here?
No, definitely. And they do a lot of storytelling really in the ring as well. Or if you need to know something about a storyline, it's kind of explained through the show. For instance, like how Jack Pride worked later on in the show, people kind of understood that he had two different minds and they would see him transform back and forth, which kind of told the story throughout the night. And we'll talk about that. But, yeah, so the very first match, we had Davey O'Doyle, submitting Aiden Adams. Great match, great way to start off the show. Got the crowd hyped into this. We also got to give a shout out to What About Ivan? Apparently he had to solo. Unfortunately, Big Bad Boris wasn't there tonight or last night. He just wasn't able to make it. So What About Ivan had to both be commentator or like MC as well as the guy who's doing the music. So he did a great job of that. So shout out to What About Ivan?
He's my favorite announcer.
He's so good. He really is. And we even made the comment yesterday because you noticed that his tie was tucked in as opposed to being hanging out of his jacket.
I couldn't believe it.
You're like,
I've
this
been
is
going
out
to PWA
character.
for years, and his tie is always outside of his jacket.
Well, not just that,
Tucked
but
in. It was so shiny too, that jacket.
it really was. Wow, is that sparkly? That's what I was just about to say. I was like, it was so sparkly. Obviously, What About Ivan? A sharply dressed man, but he wasn't the only person that tucked in tie didn't feel right. Jack Pride debuted some new gear last night as well. No green.
It didn't feel right to me, but I've seen Jack Pride since he was in CWC and Red Deer, and he's always been wearing green. And maybe that was because it used to be green with envy. I don't know. But
That's
seeing
clever.
him in black and white yesterday was just kind of a little bit different. And
Which is totally fair. Hey, see,
Jack-
yeah, so for me, I actually dug it. Like, so I always thought the green with the split personality disorder was cool. I thought the color scheme worked on him really well, and it makes sense when you say that, like, green with envy thing, obviously referencing the whole Kayla J, Jack Pride thing back, like a year ago. But the black and white, the yin and yang, do you know what I mean? Like, I kind of understood it because the white side had the black lettering and the black side had the white lettering. And since he is the man of two minds, I totally kind of got that. And I thought it totally worked for him.
Yeah, his gear looked fantastic. It was just a little odd after seeing him in green for so many years.
And you know what? It's probably got to be one of those things where you just have to kind of get used to it. It's like every time NXT changed their theme song, you're like, I just got used to that one again. And I liked that one.
Yeah, but that's a good point. I'm sure I'm going to get used to it pretty quickly, though, since Pride is one of my favorites.
Absolutely. And man, he's so good. We'll talk about him obviously in a little bit. But next up, we did have Millennial Rebels, Colton Kelly and Mo Jabari taking on Space Mountain, the Spaceman Barry Grayson, and the Titan. I love these two teams, man. Why is the tag division in Alberta just so good? It's just so good. There's so many amazing teams. And as a tag person, I just get so excited by almost every tag team we have.
Well, I think it's because you have really strong babyface tag teams. As we mentioned earlier, Aiden Adams, Kenny Stryker, great babyface tag team. Space Mountain, great babyface tag team. Titan's always there for the hot tag from Barry Grayson. And that makes the heel team's job a lot easier. If you've got easily likable teams where fans really want to get behind and see them win, all a heel has to do is just a little bit of cheating, a little bit of maybe an eye poke here and there. It gets the crowd rabid against them.
Totally. And so there was a part last night where exactly that same thing happened, as you were saying. Barry Grayson was getting beat on a little bit by the Millennial Rebels, and he goes for the hot tag with Titan, and Titan just comes in and just starts clotheslining everybody, lariat after lariat. And my brother was saying to me, he like leaned over to me and he was just like, it would be really funny if Barry gets up. He didn't actually know the name. He's like, but it would be funny if his partner gets up, and because he's just in such a rage, just clotheslining people, he accidentally clotheslines Barry Grayson. And I actually started laughing because I thought that would be kind of hilarious. And it would be kind of like a cool little dimension to the Titans character where it's kind of like once he sees red, you have to slow him down kind of a thing. But
we saw Colton Kelly do the repeated arm breakers on his own tag team partner in this one as well.
This did happen. This did indeed happen. It was hilarious. So, do you want to explain it?
No, you can take this one.
Okay, so we had Colton Kelly. He was outside of the ring, and Mo Jabari was inside the ring. Barry Grayson was getting beat up by Mo Jabari. And Colton Kelly makes this like signal, like, "Hey, give me his arm, and I'll do the thing." And so like Mo is like grabs Barry's arm, and he goes to put it in, but Barry reverses him and grabs Mo's arm and puts it into Colton's over Colton's shoulder. Colton grabs it and just starts railing down on the arm over and over again like a pump handle. And like Barry's just standing in the ring laughing, crawls out of the ring, goes over the barricade, sits in his seat in the audience, and just starts waving to Colton Kelly when he realizes he's grabbed Mo Jabari's arm instead of Spaceman. Oh man, that was so much fun.
It was such a good comedic moment in a match that wasn't built around comedy.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it. And I think PWA does this probably best, where they implement comedy bits into just an everyday match, but it doesn't do it in a way that makes it feel silly, but it does feel like it tells a fun story inside of a really good match.
Absolutely, right? It's something that you could see in a match that features one of the Nightmares, but that would be intentionally comedic.
Right. Something like this just felt like it's just a fun story where somebody was obviously so eager to do something and cocky that it would get done that didn't really obviously pay attention to what he was doing when it was happening.
Well, you know, that wouldn't happen if Dr. Kyoto was there.
No, Dr. Kyoto would have stopped them. Dr. Kyoto, unfortunately, still wasn't there. We still wish Dr. Kyoto a quick recovery, but I can't wait for his return, man. He's going to get popped. So he gets such a huge pop.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I can't wait to be a part of that. I don't care where it's going to be. If I find out that Kyoto's coming back, I'm going to get there.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
Yeah, man. We'll have to road trip if it's up in Edmonton. I don't mind. We'll do it for Kyoto.
Yeah.
Anyways, this match ended up happening with Titan gets taken out, and then obviously Barry Grayson unfortunately gets taken out. We had Colton Kelly and Mo Jabari just start wailing on Titan. It was just too much for him. Titan takes the pin, and we had the Millennial Rebels going over Space Mountain. Unfortunately, today was the day the Millennial Rebels flew with the Spaceman. So, and then maybe flew a little higher, just a little bit though. But great match either way. A lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. A great second match and a good lead-in match to our next match between Zoe Sager and Kylie Morgan for the PWA Women's Championship.
Yeah, so, Kylie coming out with new gear herself, too.
Yeah, I was going to say came out with some new gear. She came to the ring, obviously, with Davey O'Doyle, which obviously made me excited because I knew if he was going to be on the outside of the ring, he was just going to be getting into fights with the crowd. And I won't lie, there's one or two times where I just had to stop watching the actual match because Davey was doing something, not in a distracting way, but it was just me having to make that choice because I love what he does with the crowd. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. When he started bullying the security guard in the corner there.
Oh, he's so good. There was another part where there was a guy like near the corner as well, like to the bottom left near the ramp. Anyways, it's hard to say based on where we were sitting anyways, but he was just getting into with somebody in the crowd, and they just went off on each other for like 30 seconds, and I'm just giggling to myself while it was happening. But that was just what we had Davey O'Doyle doing in this match, who came out with Kylie Morgan. We can talk about the actual match. It was insane. Zoe Sager, she is such a natural wrestler. I just love everything that she does in the ring. She's such a good babyface. Everybody loves her. She gets such a huge pop. She just feels so natural and flows really well in the ring. I just absolutely love Zoe Sager.
Yeah, every time I think about it, it's really mind-boggling how much experience she has, because she hadn't been wrestling for very long. And I wonder if it might, I don't know, you've probably interviewed her. I'd love to know where she really got a lot of her knowledge of wrestling and storytelling in the ring and all of that from. Because watching her reminds me a lot of watching the old TNA Knockouts division in terms of storytelling.
I like it. I like how you say that. Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like that she just like you said, she hasn't been doing this for very long, and just how it comes so naturally to her. You know how sometimes it just feels like some people were just kind of like born to do something.
Yeah.
It feels that way with Zoe, doesn't it? Like she just feels like when she comes out to that ring. I don't know her in real life, and I actually haven't interviewed her. I'd love to do an interview with her one of these days. I should send her a message one of these days. But like,
well,
when she's in the ring,
this.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope she did. She listened to my interview. I know with Kayla J. I know that happened. So, but
so
besides that,
I hope she's listening to this one, and you get your interview with.
Zoe, I want an interview with you. We have questions to ask. But not just that. We also have to give huge props to Kylie Morgan. Now, Kylie, I don't know how, but she plays such a natural heel. There's just the way she acts, like the character work that Kylie Morgan can do is top notch. Like she knows her character. She plays her character very well. She obviously dresses in so many different ways to portray her character. She is such a talented artist in and out of the ring and out of the ring. She is fantastic with her character work. I mean, in terms of the actual wrestling, she is getting so much better. I've seen her progress, obviously, throughout the years, and I feel like she's getting more and more comfortable. Absolutely. But really, her standout for me is the ability to just be Kylie Morgan so comfortably.
Yeah, and a couple of my friends have asked me to describe her before, and I've always kind of described her as Regina George from Mean Girls if she was a wrestler.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great answer. I've never thought about it that way. But that's exactly what it's like. She's very pompous. She's very, she's just, she's like pompous, almost, I can't say Valley Girl because that's not the correct way of saying it.
No, but she's a mean girl.
She's a mean girl. She's kind of like an MJF, but like doesn't even have the care enough to talk to you enough to insult you. She's more like, just get out of my way, get out of my face.
Her theme song really insults you too.
Yeah.
Right. I'm skinny. I'm blonde. I'm rich.
That's, oh God, who actually sings her song? I have it on the top of my head. I had it like written over here. Hold on one sec. I know exactly where I can find it. It might be for a podcast I'm doing, but we'll talk about that. It is, Lady Gaga. Yeah, it's Lady Gaga. Yeah. It plays really well for her. It's her character, the way she comes to the ring, the way she portrays herself. It flows so well. And the matches that she always puts on, she always has such good character work in the matches. I don't think I've seen her win a match, honestly. But every time I see her wrestle, I feel like she gets, like, I understand her character more and more. And I feel like that's really important in a wrestler. Sometimes you feel like some people, their like character isn't quite defined enough, and as nice and good of a wrestler as they are, you don't find yourself becoming like emotionally or invested in those characters because they're not well defined. But I feel with Kylie Morgan, you don't have that problem at all.
No, I agree.
Yeah. And I'll say this even, and Zoe Sager, clearly one of the best female wrestlers. I would say that even Kylie Morgan has her character defined down even more than Zoe Sager does. And that just goes to show you she's the PWA Women's Champion. And I think that's how good Kylie Morgan is in her character.
Yeah, I agree. Her character work is really a standout, and her partnership with the league, I think, goes a long way in establishing that.
Yeah. They all play off each other so well. They complement each other really well in that regard.
Yeah, I was sad that we didn't see Braden, or Darren, should I say.
Darren wasn't there last night.
I was disappointed that he wasn't there, but we got a double dose of Davey.
I do love a double dose of Davey. I'll say a double dose of Davey does make up for the fact that we didn't get a Darren, but we still got some double D's. Obviously, Davey O'Doyle, you all know what I'm trying to say. But great match. Zoe Sager gets the pin on Kylie Morgan. I'd say this match was about a 10-minute match. It played really well. Zoe Sager can just play to the crowd so well. She's such a good baby face, man. Everybody loves Zoe. And another victory here for Zoe. She doesn't take many pins. Last time, obviously, I think was against Nicole Matthews at Clandestine. She really don't take that many pins, does she?
Nope. Especially in PWA.
Yeah, especially in PWA.
Right. When she works the RCW circuit outside of Edmonton and Calgary, I think she is a little bit more exposed booking wise, but
right. She gets well protected here in Alberta. People know what they like here in Alberta. Zoe Sager is just a great PWA women's champion. If I were to see, if I could just pull it back and just give a little bit of feedback, I would like to see more female wrestlers in the PWA roster. I feel like they have really good talent, but I would love to see some new stars get built. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's one that really springs to mind because she was at Clandestine. She was the
Ava
last
Lawless?
entrance in that clusterfuck, Ava Lawless.
Yeah, I was thinking that exact same thing. I was about to make that comment. It would be great to see Ava Lawless come down south for just a match or two, just to get her a little bit more exposed in the Calgary area and to show people in Calgary what she can do. Or even Taryn from accounting. It would be nice to see her come down for a match.
Yeah, Taryn from accounting would be a great one as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was really impressed by Ava Lawless at Clandestine. Right, she gets in there and she's just a bit of a wrecking ball, suplexing everyone.
She did such natural good suplexes, man. I really enjoyed watching Ava Lawless. That was my first time, obviously, with her. Obviously, she was a standout in some of those camps. And once again, I only seen her one time in that match, and I felt like she even had a really well-defined character and felt comfortable in her role. So, I mean, she wasn't even at the show when we get to talk about Ava Lawless. That's just
it was her first and only match, as far as I know.
Yeah, as far as I know as well. You know what? I should also see if I can get Ava Lawless in front of. I have so many people I want to do an interview for. Just for the record, if you're listening to this and you're a wrestler in the Alberta scene, I'm coming for you. I'm gonna get your interview one of these days. Send me a message if you want to race up that list, or I'm gonna come after you and get your interview. I was just like, I'm cutting my own promo on them. It's like, you can run, you can hide, but I'm gonna talk to you and we're gonna share your story, whether you like it or not. No, I'm just kidding. If you don't want to do it, that's totally fine. But I hope you do. Anyways, moving on. We had one more match before we had the first intermission here. We had the Man of Two Minds taking on Brandon Van Danielson in just a treasure of a match. I really enjoyed this match. And once again, character-wise, Jack Pride knows his character, and he plays it so well. I love Jack. I tolerate Pride because he's a dick. But I think Jack Pride, obviously, he's such a phenomenal wrestler. And in terms of the most agile big man in the world, Brandon Van Danielson, was that on full display last night or what?
He is a phenomenal wrestler. And you want to talk about character work. His character is so well defined.
Oh,
he's just this cowboy that's going to kick your face in.
You know what? After watching him last night, because he, like I said, he did such a good job in like not just the character work and obviously just being a phenomenal wrestler. The man is such an all-around phenomenal wrestler. But the acrobatics he did last night, he did a kip up, he did a cartwheel, he did a whole bunch of really big moves. He like, you're watching this guy going, it's just like, what? You're not in 205 Live. You're in like 305 Live. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't expect a big, mean, tough-looking cowboy guy to do flippy shit.
Yeah, but I love it. I love it so much coming out of Brandon Van Danielson. Every time I watch this man wrestle, I fall in love with him more and more. He feels so Albertan. He feels so in place here. Like, there's just something about an Albertan cowboy. Do you know what I mean? It fits so well. Given the obviously where we are, but not just that, but he feels like such a hometown hero, doesn't he?
Well, just cowboys and wrestling in general work really well.
You know,
Hangman
I would say that
Page
for some
works
of them.
really well.
Yes.
Stan Hansen works really well.
Yes. I will say though, there have been cowboys. Yeah, there have been cowboys I didn't really like the JBL Rich Cowboy didn't fly well with me. Not that I didn't like JBL. I thought he was a great wrestler. I loved the clothesline from hell was one of the coolest finishers. How's that?
JBL was he existed.
He did. He definitely existed. I appreciate the work that he put in on time that he was with the front lines of things. Okay, I might just say I'm not the biggest JBL fan, but I really did like the clothesline from Hell that I thought looked brutal every time he hit it. And his match against Eddie Guerrero went way too far, but it's still such a treasure in my mind.
I agree. I like JBL a lot more when he was with the APA.
Yes, when he was working with Ron Simmons and he was a part of the corporate ministry or the Ministry of Darkness, absolutely loved Bradshaw. I loved Bradshaw. Wasn't a big JBL guy. That's how I think I would say that. I liked Bradshaw, wasn't a big JBL guy.
There you go.
Anyways, move back to this match. Jack Pride. We were talking about him a little bit earlier, obviously coming to the ring with the new ring gear, the man of two minds. I just love Jack. Every time I see Jack wrestle, I always feel like something special is going to happen. Some people just have this. I want to say this in a way that doesn't sound mean to other people because that's not the way that it's intended. But you know how like some people have this aura of them where like he's a wrestler. When I see Jack Pride, I go, he's a wrestler. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you see him come out and you know something incredible is going to happen.
Yeah, he just feels so special. His character work, it's unique. A lot of people, I think, would have trouble running with a character like Jack Pride does, where he's got this split personality disorder. Jack's just like such a really nice guy, super happy. Obviously, Pride takes over him, possesses him, whatever you want to call it. And he's obviously Pride, so he's proud. He only looks out for himself. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about Jack, even though they have to exist together. I think a lot of people would struggle so much with a character like that. But Jack Pride just does phenomenal work. I love his character work.
Well, I think he stepped his character work up a bit more in this match.
Yeah, I would say that for sure.
There was
I love how he transitioned.
There was a little bit more theatrics to the transition between Jack and Pride in this match.
I think he does a great job of making it so clear as to what's happening. He doesn't make it too subtle. So I would say, like, if you were to think about somebody, if they were like an actual schizophrenic or something and they were switching between personality disorders, and I'm not talking about me, myself, and Irene were like that weird song, na, 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 we're going to get you song starts playing. Nothing like that. It would be a lot more subtle. Obviously, Jack has to play it up, but I don't think he plays it up too much that it seems cartoonish, but not too subtle that I miss it. Like, he just plays it perfectly. Like, I know exactly what just happened, and now I'll see the transition from Jack to Pride or Pride to Jack, and it feels natural.
I agree. What did your brother and your friends think of it, though?
They
were brand new.
They were brand new. So I asked them. So I told them ahead of time who Jack Pride was. We all went to the pub, Swig's Pub, before the show, 10% off if you show off your ticket. Just nice little shout out there for Swig's. I'm not sponsored or anything. But I was explaining them Jack Pride to them because I was like, so there's one character, and I'm curious to see how you're going to react to this. So I explained that he's got a split personality. He's two different people. And when he transitioned in the ring, they understood what was happening. And they too didn't think it was too cartoonish. Now, they're not wrestling people. So the whole thing around it is they still had to try to pull themselves out, from like that reality. You kind of have to fall into the world of wrestling. But when they did that, they said it didn't feel too much. They thought it was fine. They thought it was really good storytelling. And like they were able to follow him transitioning as well.
Which is really a testament to how good he is.
Yeah.
That you have brand new people and they get it and they appreciate it. And he stands out in that regard.
I think with Jack Pride, to somebody who is incredibly brand new and doesn't have somebody to ask, it might be a bit confusing. But I think once you see him tell his story one time, you go immediately like, okay, I get it. He's two people. And like the way they announce him in the ring, I think complements that as well. Because like, what about Ivan doesn't say he says they are Jack Pride. Just the subtle things like that really do help enhance that story, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
So we had a really great match here between BVD and Jack Pride. Just a phenomenal wrestling match. These two are just great workers. BVD, you can tell, has been doing this for such a long time. He obviously started alongside Michael Richard Blaze. And Jack Pride, I actually don't remember when he started wrestling, but he is also, like I said, he's just such a natural. These two told a good story. Obviously, they got the revenge from Remembrance, the PWA show, because this is the first match of this year for the PWA. and the second professional match in Calgary of the decade. So that's really cool. But Jack Pride, BVD, such good wrestlers. We had Jack Pride rolling up BVD. I was actually quite surprised by this. I almost thought BVD had this in the bag.
It was almost, actually, it wasn't almost. It was the best pure wrestling match of the night.
Oh yes, 100%. In terms of just like let's say you were tuning in to like a Bret Hart match or something like that. This was more the type of match you would see, even though, like I said, BVD was doing a lot of high fly stuff for a big guy, just doing things like cartwheels and stuff. It didn't make it feel like it was a high fly match at all. Like it still felt like a really good technical, a very good classic storytelling wrestling match.
Yeah, there wasn't any sort of work outside of the ring. There wasn't really any interference. There wasn't any cheating from either Pride or BVD. So it was really just a pure match. Yeah.
Beautiful match. I really love these two. A good win for Jack Pride as well. I love how they booked Jack Pride. Obviously, I feel like Jack Pride in I don't even want to say 5 years because I feel like that's too long, but I feel like in a very short period of time, people will be looking at Jack Pride in very similar eyes in the way people look at BVD, people look at MRB, look at MARC or Michael Allen, Richard Clark. Do you know what I mean?
I think it'll be the end of the year.
You know what? It could be that soon, and I wouldn't be surprised. Jack Pride is phenomenal. He obviously had such a breakout year in 2019. I got introduced to him in 2019. I immediately loved Jack Pride. Huge fan of his work, man. Anyways, good win there. We had our intermission, and then we talk a little bit about a little thing you said where there wasn't a lot of, fighting outside the ring. Good little transition into our next match for the PWA Mayhem Championship. We had the Thickness Reed Matthews versus Michael Richard Blaze, God's Gift to Wrestling. And I'd probably say this is my match of the night just because of how interactive it was for me.
Yeah, it was my match of the night as well. It was the crowd was really riled up for it. And this is one thing that Michael Richard Blaze does better than anyone, is whether he's working as a heel or a face, he makes that crowd care.
100%.
And Thickness, you can repeat everything you were saying about BVD previously.
Oh, yeah.
Thickness, you don't expect him to pull off anything he does in the ring.
So when I look at Thickness, I feel like I'm older than Thickness. I look at his face and I think I don't know, 24, 25 maybe. He's got more of a younger face. But I look at a guy where I just have the most, such respect for the guy because, one, he's such a talented wrestler. He is phenomenal. As the PWA Mayhem champion, I couldn't be any happier with the Thickness. Two, he does moves you couldn't expect a man like him to do. He's very much like a Kevin Owens, but even more high flyy than Kevin Owens. He's so comfortable doing the high flyy stuff, and he's also a bigger guy, so he has no problems even doing power moves. So he's got this such a varied. He's like the biggest lucha libre guy, almost you'd say, except without actually doing backflips. Do you know what I mean?
It's like someone created a wrestler and just went, I want him to be a heavyweight, but I want him to do all of the cruiserweight moves.
Yeah, he was like one of those weird guys you would play on a creator wrestler, like on WrestleMania 2000 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I was always the type of guy who made the big guy. He was 7'11", 480 pounds, but he only looked like he was 260. I don't know. I'm such a weird guy. But no, that's a great way of saying that with the Thickness. I love the Thickness. I've got my King of Thick style shirt 5 feet from me right now. Though I preferred the shirt he wore at Clandestine. I really want that shirt. Thick as fuck.
I wish he had those for sale.
Thickness, if you want those for sale, I know a guy who makes t-shirts called me. So send me a message and we can make thick as fuck shirts for you for sale. That'd be hard to sell, I think, especially at a PWA show. And obviously he wouldn't wear something like that at PWA, but I just loved that shirt.
But if he's working 18 plus shows for Force.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure he will be. Obviously, he's worked some other Force shows, and he's got a match coming up here in the next Force show where his opponent is unannounced. It's going to be kind of I guess, an open challenge. So I'm super excited to see who's going to be answering that. I made a guess. I made my own hypothetical online. I said the Canadian Goose, but we'll see. I don't know. It could be the Goose. It could be somebody else. I have no idea.
Could be Goose.
Kind of want it to be the Goose. I want it honk, man. I'm always a big fan of honking. Obviously, we don't get to do that in the PWA at the moment, but man, that'd be fun if we could. Anyway, so we had Thickness versus MRB. And it's so natural, like you were saying, MRB can be a heel or a face, and he can just work either. He was the heel in this match. He was a face literally last time we saw him in the last couple of months. But I guess he has to play heel against Thickness because everybody wants to chant he's too thick, which got chanted so many times. In fact, there was a crowd in the sign that said he's too thick. Sitting
that was
right
a nice
across
sign, too.
It
Someone
really
put time into that.
It was it was very legible. It was very clean. It didn't feel scribbled at all. Somebody really wanted to make a he's too thick sign and be proud of it. So we had, and so this was a Falls Count Anywhere match. And we'll just get to say that I don't know what it was last night. Negative 25 degrees Celsius approximately last night during the show.
Yeah, minus 24, minus 25 with a wind chill down to probably minus 32.
So minus 32. We have to say, so Michael Richard Blaze wrestles in like knee-high boots and then like pink, I don't even know what the word you would call it is, pink underwear approximately. And he has like elbow guards. And the Thickness, he wrestles in like long tights and like a cut-up shirt, but it's still mostly a t-shirt. They wrestled outside of the building. They wrestled out into the crowd. They wrestled around the crowd. MRB threw Thickness into the wall by the emergency exit back door, kicked open the door, threw Thickness outside, and started walking outside. And then the crowd just got up and walked outside, just tried chasing after them. I got some footage of it on my phone. It was really cold. I feel so bad for MRB for what was about to happen. MRB looks like he's about to like DDT Thickness, but Thickness reverses him and suplexes MRB directly into the snow when it's like negative 32 with wind chill, and he's literally wearing nothing but underwear and like long socks, approximately, in terms of body coverage.
Yeah, he immediately gets up and goes, "Ow, that's cold."
Well, I think the exact words was, "Holy fuck, that's cold." I think that was the exact wording because I thought it was.
I think that was the exact wording, but trying to keep it a PG show.
I don't even care anymore. We're past 5 minutes. I think nobody's gonna listen anymore. If they're listening to this, it's because they're actually invested into this scene. So we had them wrestle or fight around outside, getting thrown into walls and all this kind of stuff. We ran back in through the emergency exit that we left through. I made it back to my seat the very moment they fought through the front door that we obviously came through, like the ticket door, and then fought towards the ring again. It was so much fun. I was really cold. I started coughing. I'm on 2 inhalers now. As soon as I came back inside and started wrestling, I had to grab my inhaler because I was just losing my throat. And, but it was worth it every second. I love those moments where it feels far more interactive and things are happening that you don't get to see. I'm not going to say it's uncommon to see wrestling outside the ring in the crowd in an indie show. I'd say it happens approximately once a show. It's not that uncommon. But to wrestle outside into the snow and run around a building during a match when you're like, you paid for a seat inside, it makes it so much fun. And like, that's one of those things that like, I might not remember this show 2 years from now, but I'll remember running outside and watching MRB getting suplexed into the snow in negative 32. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it also felt really spontaneous.
Yeah.
Like, these guys were wrestling outside, so I'm sure it was pre-planned, but MRB riled up the crowd, waved his finger above his head and pointed to the door. And at that point, I said to Mitch, no way he's going outside. And then he did.
I love that about MRB. MRB is the type of guy where he understands that there is nothing more important than the show and telling the story. Do you know what? This is going to sound weird, but I'm sure you'll understand this reference. MRB feels like the Alberta Triple H, where nothing is more important than the story and getting that across in the ring.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I love that. I love that. I would just make that comparison. That just makes me happy. But yeah, I love MRB. The man has such a brilliant mind for wrestling, and there is a very clear reason as to why people call him not just like the best in Alberta, but one of the best indie wrestlers in all of Canada, if not the best. This man has wrestled in the ring against Braun Strowman, against Hideo Itami. He stood alongside Lars Sullivan when he was facing DIY. These are not just simple accolades to achieve anywhere, let alone being from Alberta. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you look at his resume of guys that he's wrestled in Alberta, I mean, he's wrestled Teddy Hart, who
Samoa
is
Joe.
an absolute, Samoa Joe, Cody Rhodes 3 times. Like, he's wrestled basically the who's who of anyone that's passed through Alberta.
Well, I believe Cody Rhodes has even said that he thinks that MRB is one of the greatest wrestlers not signed to a major promotion. I believe I've read that online. If I didn't get that right, I'm sure I did. I always feel confident that I did. But Cody Rhodes,
I think that was when it was the Canadian Destroyer off the ladder at Night of Champions last year.
I believe that's what I believe you're right. I believe that's exactly what it was. And talking just quickly a little bit since you mentioned Teddy Hart, it seems like Hart Legacy Wrestling has been announcing some shows. We had one down in Montana and one, I can't remember the name of the little, I believe it's a reserve, but here in Alberta, it seems like Hart Legacy Wrestling might be doing a return. So that's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see who they bring in.
Yeah. I will say this about Hart Legacy Wrestling, and I haven't been to one of their shows, but I know you have, and you've been more involved with Hart Legacy Wrestling. They seem to have the ability to get anybody, and they will put on a card that is worth seeing.
Yeah, like when they were running shows last year, they were bringing in a lot of guys from AAA in Mexico.
Which is not a bad thing at all.
No, they're bringing in really good luchadors and lucha libre talent. And that show was also the first time I actually saw AEW's Jungle Boy.
Oh, Jungle Boy, man. I wish I could have seen him live. I still have not. I hate myself that I haven't seen him live yet.
Yeah. So he's like, Hart Legacy Wrestling brings in guys. And if they're doing a tour style, I'm really interested in who they're bringing in.
Yeah, I think it'll be really exciting. Obviously, we'll have to listen for more of that. But I digress. Let's talk a little bit more about the Thickness and MRB. So this match ended up happening after they fought outside and wrestled back inside. Jack Pride came out. He was obviously, I believe he started out as Pride when he came out, if I'm being 100% honest. When he sat down, he put the chair down on the entry ramp. He sat there. He watched the match. He provided a bit of a distraction, though I think he probably but he was Jack when he kind of got involved. MRB came to the outside, and Jack Pride was trying to help up Thickness. He's like, "Hey, he's our friend. Leave us alone. We're just helping him up." And he's getting in MRB's face and everything. Obviously, the night didn't pan out well for him at the very end. We'll get to that, but his distraction obviously did provide a little bit of a cover there for the Thickness at the very end of the match, because he ended up getting the win over MRB and retaining that PWA Mayhem Championship because of the slight distraction from Jack Pride.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in looking forward to seeing Thickness and Jack Pride if they're going to start a program.
So I'm curious if it's going to happen yet. I mean, we could do a little theory crafting right now, because at the very end, Jack Pride came into the ring and he was super happy. He's like, "Hey, everybody, really happy for our buddy. Everybody give it up for the Thickness, our good friend." I love Jack. Man, Jack is Jack. I love him. He's the happiest, nicest guy in the world. And I just want to go share, I don't know, like a soda pop with him while we go watch a movie. Like, do you know what I mean? Jack just seems like such a nice guy. Pride, like, no, maybe a beer on a bad day. But Thickness wasn't having any of it. He ended up choke slamming Jack Pride at the very end, holding up that title. The crowd's obviously super behind the Thickness. Great babyface. Another one of those guys where it just feels like such a natural babyface, though maybe even more than Kenny Stryker. I could see the Thickness being a heel. He could be a heel, but it would be really hard for him to be a heel because his moveset is such face moveset.
Yeah, but he was the heel for quite a while, where he was with the rest of the Millennial Rebels.
Yeah. I guess, but his storyline with him turning on the Millennial Rebels and everything and turning into the good guy, I guess I just never felt him as the heel as much as I do a babyface. He just feels like such a natural babyface. Or maybe it's just that he's got the spotlight now that he's out of the Millennial Rebels because he's the thickness. He's his own thing. And maybe that's also why I feel like he's running with it a bit more. He's got a little bit more power in it now, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But either way, I love thickness. Anyways, he retained against MRB. Jack Pride, even at the end, after getting chokeslammed, he was clapping for the thickness. He didn't turn into Pride at that entire moment, but he could turn heel. He could go after the Mayhem Championship against thickness. I don't know. Maybe it's a long-term storyline. Maybe they'll do tagging for a little bit. I would be okay with that too. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
It would be really interesting to see those two as a tag team, but have thickness not able to trust Pride at all.
It, almost like how when Sheamus and Cesaro first became a tag team, it took a long time for Cesaro to actually trust Sheamus had his back in those situations.
Well, yeah, but thickness would trust Jack.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
but
absolutely.
That would be really interesting.
I'm surprised Jack trusts Pride as much as he does.
I don't think he has a choice.
Yeah, I guess not. I guess that's the problem with split personalities, right? Anyways, let's move on to the main event of the night. This was another great match. We had the PWA heavyweight champion, Michael Allen Richard Clark, up to defend his title against Sheik Akbar Shabazz, a one-time PWA champion in his own right, and probably one of the most confident guys in the ring in all of Alberta wrestling. I feel like Sheik Akbar Shabazz is just such a competent, amazing wrestler that he never feels like there's something in the ring that he couldn't do or wouldn't be confident in that situation of. He never feels unsure as a wrestler. He is such a confident, damn good wrestler. I love Sheik Akbar Shabazz.
And his back is still scarred up from Clandestine.
It was a hardcore match. Everybody's back looked really bad. I was surprised. Obviously, we haven't seen Evan Adams since Clandestine, but I'm sure his back doesn't look much better either.
Oh, definitely not.
So we had Michael Allen Richard Clark in this match, the greatest heel, in my opinion, in Alberta. Him and Andy Anderson. When I go back and look at these kind of things, I feel like they're just such great heels. I really like Michael Allen Richard Clark being from Calgary, though, because he's always here. He's my PWA champion. Even if I hate Michael Allen Richard Clark, I don't. I love Michael Allen Richard Clark, but I love to hate his character because he's such a jerk and it plays so well. He's such a talented wrestler. Him and Michael Richard Blaze, every time I see them in the ring, I'm just like, they're just too good. They're just too good. Go beat AEW and WWE champion. I know it's not that easy, but I could see them both being champions because they're just so damn good. And I could just totally see Michael Allen Richard Clark cutting a promo in front of 60,000 people, calling everybody bus people. Oh man, I would love that. Wouldn't you love seeing him at like a WrestleMania and be like, all these bus people out here? Oh man.
That would be really entertaining. It would also be really entertaining if it was like a Royal Rumble match. Because I always love when there's one guy that gets the microphone in the Royal Rumble. And I always think back to CM Punk a few years ago when he was in the Straight Edge Society and he was cutting promos in the ring.
And he would just keep eliminating somebody and then pick up the mic and finish his next set of his promo, put it down, do it again and again.
Exactly. But just imagine Michael Allen Richard Clark getting the upper hand and being the only guy in there. Else comes out and he's like, I got to deal with this bus person now.
Oh man, it would be fantastic. Could you imagine if he was doing this thing where he first person out in the Royal Rumble, cuts a promo, he's sitting in the middle of the ring, and he's got like this, I want to say like a flipboard kind of thing with like a pointer stick, and he's like teaching the fat bus people how to do exercises. So, he starts off in the ring and he does 5 sit-ups, and he's like, do you see this form? And then, the second person comes in, he's like, oh, another bus person. They come out, he eliminates them, and he's like, now I'm going to teach you fat, lazy bus people to do push-ups. And he just keeps doing that. I would love that so much.
That would be a really good segment just to do locally too.
I know apparently wrestlers actually listen to this around here. Please let Michael Allen Richard Clark do a segment where he's teaching the fat, lazy bus people how to do exercises while eliminating people out of a Royal Rumble over and over again. Please just let this happen. So this match started off with just a bunch of fun mind games. Like this one and Davey O'Doyle and Aiden Adams started off with so much fun. Because Michael Allen Richard Clark was talking about his shirt. He was like very happy with his shirt. He gets referee Houston Moore to pull off the shirt. He takes it, he folds it up all nicely on the ground, puts it in the corner, starts going to like he's going to wrestle Sheik, and then Sheik walks to his corner, picks up the shirt, looks at it, starts like flossing. You know how I went butt flossing is what I'm going to call it. He starts butt flossing the t-shirt outside the pants, obviously, until he does it inside the pants. So he puts it in his pants and pulls out from the back of the pants, and it goes in and around. It does go all the way around, and he pulls it back out the other side, tosses it at Michael Allen Richard Clark, who looks like he wants to vomit when he's like it lands on him and the smell's there. And then he forces referee Houston Moore. He grabs his arm, forces him to pick it up, and then bends his arm so it touches his face. I feel like that should have been a disqualified move. Is that not like attacking a ref? Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's just, he's such a jerk.
He's such a jerk. And it's exactly what it was. Poor referee Houston Moore had to deal with whatever smells came from Sheik Akbar Shabazz. And then, of course, the poor security guard at the very end got thrown outside, and he had to do this thing where he like picked it up and he like held it at an arm's length away from him and just kind of like with two fingers and walked it to the back. I love wrestling so much, man. And we didn't even start wrestling yet. Oh, man. So Michael Allen, Richard Clark, and Sheik Akbar Shabazz, like I said, two of the most competent, talented wrestlers in Alberta. So like I said, Sheik Akbar Shabazz just feels so confident that, like, he could do anything he wants in that ring. It doesn't matter. Every move that he does, he feels like he's perfected. And Michael Allen Richard Clark, he's just such a talented guy. Overall, one of the greatest there is. So these two just put on a clinic for a great wrestling match. Like you said earlier, you think that Pride and BVD probably had the best actual wrestling match. I might agree with that. I feel like there was a more comedy in this match, but I feel like that's also in Michael Allen Richard Clark's character. But I feel like this was the second most wrestling match of the night.
Yeah. Besides the tag match, I agree.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And the tag. That's what I think I love. They really understand their demographic in the PWA. They know who they're playing to, and they play those matches really well. You got a nice mixture of comedy, serious, intense wrestling with nice high spots, but then also just good matches that have humor but not overtaking the match.
Yeah, and one thing I really do appreciate about PWA is their cards are typically 6 or 7 matches. Right? I've been to indie shows before where you've had 10, 11 matches on it. And at that point, it feels really long for the audience, but it also doesn't give the wrestlers enough time to perform.
No, I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think PWA does this best because last night we had 6 matches, for instance. And I think 6 is a great number of matches. At the RCW show we went to last week, they had 8. It didn't feel too long, but some of those matches felt very short by comparison to these PWA shows, which I think works well for younger talent. But because PWAs already have, like this card, for instance, was all established Alberta wrestlers, I feel like 6 was the perfect number because it gave everybody enough time to shine and show off what they can do because nobody's really an amateur. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's almost like NXT takeovers versus main roster pay-per-views for the WWE.
You mean like the
NXT? You have 5 or 6 matches on it for
yes. Oh, I see. Yes, yeah.
4-hour show, and then main roster you have 10, 11, 12, and it feels so dense.
Yeah, and I think I love that about NXT. A takeover never feels too long, but I never feel like it goes too short either. I always feel like takeovers are perfect because, like you said, I'm pretty sure it's the average has been 5 for the last forever. As far as back as I can remember, 5 seems to be like the very average number. But every match always feels so important. They follow and they structure it so well. And I feel like that, like you said, that's very similar to how PWA does it. It's not about the number of matches. It's about the kind of storytelling and quality you can get out of the fewer matches that you have to get over the talent that you're trying to get over.
Exactly.
Yeah. But great match. Once again, Michael Allen, Richard Clark pins Sheik Akbar Shabazz, hits him with the bus cutter. Another person kicked out of a bus cutter. That's the second bus cutter I've seen get kicked out of. First, we had Son of Irish at Clandestine, and then we had Sheik last night kick out of a bus cutter. So, I guess I don't know what's going on with that bus cutter. I think he's got to get more angry at bus people. He's got to feed his bus people hatred meter.
He's getting a little soft on the bus people.
Absolutely getting soft on the bus people. We need to see some more intensity from our PWA heavyweight champion, Michael Allen Richard Clark.
I mean, the move that he actually finished the match with, the powerbomb backbreaker, I have zero problems with that becoming his new finisher.
He did that same thing. That's how he beat Son of Irish as well, at Clandestine. And
it's
I agree.
Such a brutal looking move. It is.
Yeah. I will say when he did it to Son of Irish at Clandestine, it looked more brutal, but that's because Son of Irish is about 150 pounds less than Sheik Akbar Shabazz. So it felt like he
still looked really good with Sheik.
Oh yeah. Well, the fact that he did it to a guy, so we'll just straight up say Sheik Akbar Shabazz is a much bigger gentleman than Michael Allen Richard Clark. In terms of height, he probably has only about 2 inches, but just in terms of like the girth and body size, I'd say he's easily got like an easy 30, 35 pounds on Michael Allen Richard Clark, who is all muscle. And for the fact that he was able to, he lifted him up. He looked like he was about to drop him, didn't, picked him up even more. The amount of strength that Michael Allen Richard Clark has is insane. Picks him up all the way, drops him right onto that knee. Boom. Sheik Akbar Shabazz out. We had the 3 count from Michael Allen Richard Clark, and he retains. And like you said, damn, such a powerful looking move.
It's so brutal looking.
What do you think he's going to call it?
Those are kind of the best finishing moves there are. Are moves that are just so impactful that it almost sucks the wind out of the audience when they see it happen.
For me, my favorite finishing move growing up was always a power bomb. Like, no matter what the iteration was, a power bomb always felt like such a definitive finishing move that this is exactly that. It's a power bomb, but then you add a backbreaker into it. So not only is somebody just falling onto the canvas, their spine is being snapped around your knee. Like, ugh. Maybe we should call it the bus line, or I don't know.
End of the line.
End of the line. Oh, that'd be very clever because he hates the bus people. End of the line. Damn, that was beautiful. We should pitch this to him, man. So he doesn't have a name for that move. We'll call it the end of the line. I love it.
I don't think he'll talk to us. I think he thinks we're bus people.
I know what we'll do. Okay, so this is what we do. We send a message to Mike Ducey, because Mike Ducey is from Saskatchewan. We get him to start another hashtag fake fan rant alongside Michael Allen Richard Clark on Twitter, and he suggests it through these random hashtag fake fan chants rants that they constantly go on.
Okay, there we go. We got an inside man.
We've got the inside man, Mike Ducey. If you're listening to this, man, we need to work together. We helped Saskatchewan out. You got to help us Alberta boys out now. We got to get this thing named. But that was the show. Overall, a fantastic show. Once again, just there wasn't a bad match on this card. The entire show felt very smooth. Didn't feel too long. Felt like everything got everything over the way it needed to. The stories were well developed and told. Nothing felt confusing. I really enjoyed last night. I thought that was an amazing show to start off the year and the decade for the PWA.
It was such a perfect show to start the year off. Right. You get all sorts of new fans in that crowd. There were people on Twitter saying that it was their dad's first show, their sister's first show, and that they absolutely loved it. And I can totally see why. It's a perfect show for them to start the year off, and I hope they keep that momentum going throughout the year.
Yeah, the crowd last night was fantastic. A big shout out to the crowd. In fact, I'm going to say this. So my brother was talking to me and he was just like, I really loved last night. Like, I took him out because it was his birthday in a couple of days here. And I wanted to give him his very first experience at a wrestling show. And he's like, I just wanted to say this. Like, I had such a great time. He had a lot of fun. But he's like, more so than the wrestling itself, I was loving just how into everything the crowd was. He said, I have never been to a show of any sport at any size where so many people consistently felt like they were in love with the product that they were watching. He's like the community at this show, the people getting into it, the way they would chant and the way they would cheer, they would boo. They all understood what was happening. He's like, it was almost mesmerizing to be a part of. He's like, it was very natural. And the community surrounding the wrestling that we were given was what really made it for him, even more so than the actual wrestling.
That's really poignant. It's a really good descriptor of the wrestling community in Alberta.
Yeah. And it just goes to show why people like you and me and, the Win Column Sports Network and all the wrestlers out there and all the refs and all the people who work behind the scenes and the promoters, why they do stuff like this, because we understand what we have here in Alberta. We are so fortunate that we have such a great scene. We have talents that are next level that you wouldn't expect to have inside the indie scene. We have developed teams that feel so natural together. We have such good integrated storylines. Even if you're an amateur in Alberta, the amount of talent that we have working with you gets you over so much faster. People progress really fast in Alberta. And I think that's just what it's like being in Alberta. Alberta has produced some of the best wrestlers on the planet. A lot of the best wrestlers on the planet have wrestled or trained here in Alberta. Hell, the AEW World Champion, Chris Jericho, was a Stampede wrestler. We had Lance Storm here, right? One of the most recent WWE champions in Jinder Mahal is from Northeast Calgary, right? We have people in the WWE from Victoria all the way to Quebec. But here in Alberta specifically, we have so many different people that were developed here. Alberta is such a talented province and we have such great talent. And it's just so easy to showcase what we have to the world or want to talk about it because we have that AAA product that you want to watch in the WWE, that you want to see in AEW. We have that here.
I agree. That's a really strong statement, and I agree with every single piece of it.
I felt like I just went on my own little rant and just be how is Alberta wrestling not the WWE? Why are they not comparing themselves to us? You know what I mean? Obviously that's silly to say, but man, I love our scene here. I love the community. I love the talents, and Alberta wrestling, I can only see getting more and more popular these days. Obviously things have fallen, since the days of Stampede Wrestling, the Hart families, obviously. We no longer have Storm Wrestling Academy in Calgary. But I don't feel like that's going to slow us down here in Alberta. In fact, I feel like Alberta in the 2020s, we're only going up, and we're going to see some amazing things this year.
Well, there's a bunch of places where people are still able to go get trained by some of the best in the world, best in Canada, right? Michael Richard Blaze is running his training camps
this weekend, which, for the record, if all of you are in the Edmonton region and you wanted to try your first ever hand at wrestling, he is going and running a training camp. I believe it is $200 for both days. I believe they are 8-hour days. It's not going to be easy. I've heard what it's like training under Michael Richard Blaze. Honestly, if I was in Edmonton, I might try it myself, not because I want to be a wrestler, but because I really want to know what it feels like. And if you're in Edmonton, you got to send a message to Michael Richard Blaze. You got to do this. If you've got this weekend free and you just want to know what it feels like, you want to know what it feels like to experience wrestling, you got to go to one of these training camps, man. Michael Richard Blaze, all I've heard is amazing things about the training that he has done.
I agree, but there's also Monster Pro Wrestling, the school out in Edmonton, Pure Power down in Lethbridge.
Yep,
has a school. Pro Fitness Wrestling Academy in Calgary. So there's plenty of places where guys can still come and get trained and have the opportunity to get onto these shows and work
absolutely.
with the top end talent that's already here.
100%. If you're in Alberta and you feel like, hey, Storm is gone, that doesn't mean anything. Let's look at Kayla J, for instance. You brought up Monster Pro Wrestling. That's where she trained. You guys understand how good Kayla J is, right? You don't need Lance Storm to be as good as Kayla J. Kayla J is one of the greatest, and she was trained at Monster Pro. And she's going to go really far as well. It doesn't matter. We have the top talent in Alberta to train you. And just if this is something that interests you, give it a shot. I would give it a shot if I was closer to Edmonton. If he ran a camp in Calgary, I'm not going to lie. I'd get my ass whooped. I would be exhausted. I'm not a physically fit person. I would give it my all, and I would totally do it. And that would be as far as I would go in the world of wrestling.
Well, if you learn how to take a bump, maybe you can become a heel manager.
That is, okay, to be fair, that is something I've always wanted to be. I always look at the heel managers and go, they have the most fun in the world. I've said this before, the idea of making a crowd hate me so much where they are booing to the point where if I get punched in the face, everybody loses their mind being happy. I can't think of a better thing. Like, that just sounds so amazing to me. I'm sure Thaddeus Archer III knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but, you might not want to take a chokeslam into barbed wire, though.
So there is... Thaddeus Archer III is also a better manager than I would be. I'd be like, no, just throw me out the ring. I'll land on some glass or something. It's fine. Poor guy. He would have ruined his suit. How many holes would have been punctured into that thing? Oh, poor guy. But what a great show. Once again, man, we've been going for about an hour. We tend to do this with these shows. It's just so easy to chat about. You and me, we love the shows. We're always there together. We're always having a beer. It's always fun.
It's always a good time.
We'll be at a couple more shows. RCW is going to have another show here at the end of the month. I believe that's it for Calgary this month, if my brain remembers correctly. I think we've only got one more RCW show on the 31st. But of course, I'm sure we'll be there, and I'll buy you a beer. I think I owe you like one or two at this point. I should be buying you a beer every time you're on this podcast. So I think I'm at like 4 now, 3 or 4.
Don't worry about it. It's always my pleasure to be on.
Gonna get you just absolutely sloshed at an RCW show on the 31st. But Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Plug your stuff. Tell people where they can find you.
You can find us on Twitter at YYC Wrestling Hub. If you're ever curious about where the next show is, or if you're interested in where to go to get trained, just shoot us a message on Twitter and we will get you in contact with those people or let you know when the next show is. Or let you know which show you should bring your 4-year-old child to.
Last night would have been that show, for instance.
Exactly.
Thank you again, Paul, so much for joining me, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful night, buddy.
You too, Anthony.
It is always a fantastic time talking wrestling with Paul over at the YYC Wrestling Hub. Considering we're at every Calgary show together, it's always great and easy to chat with the guy. Super smart, very knowledgeable guy. Remember to go give him a like and follow on Twitter. And that does it for me today, everybody. But if you do want to support this show and you do like what's going on, remember to hit that like button and subscribe on whatever podcast app you're listening to this on. It also helps out the show immensely if you gave us a 5-star rating and review, if that is what you want to do. I hope you all have yourself a fantastic day. On Friday, I have an interview with the Spaceman, Barry Grayson, coming out. It's a fantastic interview. Great time talking with him. Man, it's very fun and very chill and very easy to talk with, so you'll have to tune in for that. He has another interview that's actually coming out today with our good friends over at the Chronic Wrestling Addiction podcast. It is their very first ever episode. They are from the Grand Prairie region, and so is the Spaceman, so you got him in there. It's different content, so go check them out today over at the Chronic Wrestling Addiction podcast. And then tune back in on Friday for my interview with the Spaceman here at Wrestlesode. I hope you all have yourself a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.